Hi, this is David McCann for WebTNG. By default, WordPress does not show custom fields on the front end, and to do so requires some theming. In this series, we've looked at a number of tools, both plugins and themes, for creating the theme templates for custom post types in order to show their custom fields. In this video, we'll instead look at the old-fashioned way of handling this without a builder by modifying the theme's PHP templates directly to create the single template for the book's custom post type. There are several reasons why you might want to go this way, including you don't want to use a builder for performance reasons, having a builder installed just for one template seems like overkill, you have no budget and cannot afford a theme template builder, or you want to learn. For whatever reason, you're moving into the realm of the power user or developer, and there's some things you need to make this happen. The first, and perhaps the most important, is curiosity and patience. You need to be willing to do a lot of trial and error and not get frustrated. I'm working on my local desktop machine where I'm running Laragon. You're going to need access to the files on your website for this project. So a local site is easiest, but you can also use a staging site if you have FTP access to edit the files. Don't try to edit the files from within WordPress, because if you make a mistake, you may lock yourself out from your site. In this example, I'm using the free Cadence theme. Cadence is a new popular theme that's page builder friendly and works well with Gutenberg. Because we'll be modifying theme files, it's important to use a child theme. These days, many popular themes have already put together a child theme for you. I googled Cadence child theme, and the first result was a page on the Cadence website that showed how to create a child theme, along with the download of an already created child theme for Cadence. I downloaded the example Cadence child theme. Okay, before we go any further, let's install our child theme. I've already downloaded it, so I'm going to upload it to the site and then we'll activate it. Okay, so now we have the child theme. Here's my development site that I'm using for this project. You can see I have a number of demo content posts created. And I've used CPT UI and Advanced Custom Fields to create a custom post type called Books. If you're not familiar with how to create a custom post type and add custom fields, take a look at the very first video in this series where I walk through how to do that. Let's take a quick look at the book custom post type. You can see I've entered a number of records. And here we have a custom taxonomy genres. We have the title, the content. We have the featured image, which is an image from the book cover. And then we've got two custom fields, the URL or link to the author's website and the author's photo. If we take a look at the book custom post type, we see that it's not showing the featured image, the post meta, or the custom fields. My first step is I want to get this to look as close as possible to what I want the final result to be. So I'm going to leverage one of the features of the Cadence theme, which is that it allows you to use the theme options for custom post types to use the same options that you do for your blog posts. So this is the single book layout. I'm going to enable the post meta. I'll enable the sidebar. I'll turn on the featured image. And I'll set the featured image to be below. Okay, so we can see this featured image is huge. What I really want is I want to have two columns with a smaller featured image, the custom fields on one side, and the content on the other. Okay, but I'm going to save this. And now the work begins. The first step is let's go look at what we have on our directory. We have the Cadence theme. It has all of these files. And then we have the Cadence child theme. And you see it has only a few files. A pretty much empty functions PHP, a pretty much empty, just 1 kilobyte each, style sheet, and then a screenshot. Child theme isn't doing much yet. If we go back and look at the Cadence theme, we know we want to modify and work with some of these files. But how do we know where to start? Which ones do we start with? So the place where we start is we go to WordPress.org theme handbook, and there's something called the template hierarchy. And let's take a look at this chart. And what it does is it shows the rules that WordPress uses to pick a theme PHP file. We're doing the single, not the archive. And we see that it's going to use single PHP or singular PHP. But if you have a custom post type, you can add a file called single dash and the name of the post type .php, and WordPress will use that file instead. Just to kind of show you that, let's go back to our child theme and let's add single dash book.php. Here's our single page. There it is. It used it. Unfortunately, we lost all of the theme there. We lost the header, the footer, the content area, and everything. And so if we want to use this method here, we're going to need to recreate everything that the theme already gives us. I'd rather leverage all the styles and all the extras that Cadence gives us and see if we can find a different way, another way to achieve the same thing. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to delete that file. But I thought it was important to show you that, yes, indeed, WordPress will pick that file. Let's refresh. Okay, so we're back now to the default Cadence. Let's go and look on the file system and see what Cadence has. Here's the single PHP file. If I open that in my text editor, we see it has a function getHeader, okay? It has a function getFooter. And in between that, there's an action or a function, cadence single. All right, so there's where the header is, there's where the footer is, and here's a lot of stuff in between. But this isn't telling us which template to modify, it's just calling another function. There's a really good and useful helper called Show Current Template. This plugin, what it does is when we're on the front end, it shows you which theme template is being used, a single. In this case, a single PHP, just like the theme hierarchy said. But now if we hover over it, wow, we can see these are all the files, the PHP files that are included to make up this page. So if we wanted to replace this, we'd need to handle all this, or we might lose some theme functionality. However, there's something here we can note, and that is if we go down here, we can see there are template parts. Content single, entry content single. These things here are template parts. Here's the single, okay? And after the single is called, then it calls entry content, entry header, thumbnail, single entry, single base, and then files for the footer. If we look on the file system, let's see what we have. These are some of the base theme files. Here's some support for Tutor LMS. For the Tribe Events Calendar. Here's Lifter LMS. Here's some translation files. Here's where there's some include files, maybe some PHP include files, support for bbPress, and assets. These would be your JavaScript and CSS files. But here's the template parts. And many modern themes use some variation of this. And what they've done, we want to go to Content, is rather than have just everything in one file, in that single PHP file, they've broken it all up so they can reuse this same code in multiple files, and they just call it or include it. So like here's the entry meta. Rather than rewrite that for every page, they've put it into one PHP file and then can include that every time. All right, so here's the single and the single entry. Let's take a look at the single. Here it's doing a before main content, after main content, but the main action here is going to be it gets the post, and then it includes the template part content, the single entry, and it passes in the custom post type. It calls this function get post type and passes in the custom post type. So this looks like the kind of area we want to be right in between the header and footer. So now let's look at this single entry file. So we see here is this option if the featured image is above. Remember we saw that in the customizer. Then here's the main content. And then here's some content after the main content that Cadence offers, like maybe a author box or the footer information or post navigation. Okay, but this is the area then that we're interested in, this content. So we see it loads the featured image above or below. Okay, it has the title, it's getting the content, and then the entry footer, and then calling the single inner content. This is the area that I want to try to modify for our PHP template. These two files, single PHP and single entry PHP, I'm going to grab those and copy them. And then notice they're in a folder called Template Parts Content under the Cadence. So I'm going to go to Themes, Cadence Child. I'm going to create a folder. And then inside this, I'm going to create another folder called Content. And then I'm going to paste these two files. Now this one I'm going to rename and call it Book. Okay, so one thing I wanted to point out to you is the only files we're copying over is this one's going to be a new one, and we're going to modify the single. Okay, so the only ones we need to copy over are the new ones and the changed ones, and WordPress Magic takes care of the rest. So we don't need to copy over the whole theme to modify it, just the changes. And that's a cool thing about WordPress child themes. It makes it a lot simpler to maintain. Okay, so let's go back to this one. All right, and now we see that it has a get post type here. So it's already calling that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to modify this part here, okay? And I'm going to put a conditional statement in there. I'm going to say if post type equals books, get post type. See, I'm using the function that was already there. Then load single entry book, the new one that we copied over and renamed. Otherwise, just keep doing the same thing. Okay, and this will use the parent theme because it doesn't exist in the child theme. Now we should be using the single entry book file. Let's save this and let's go back to the front end and refresh. Nothing changes, okay, because we haven't made any code changes. But it could be that maybe we're working in the wrong place. Right? Maybe I'm totally off and I'm in the wrong place and I don't see any change here because we're modifying files that don't have anything to do with this. So let's check our list of templates and files. And ooh, here it is, single entry book. So we can see that our new file is being used. Let's do one more kind of reality check here. Let's go to the single entry book file that we copied over and let's just add a little snippet of PHP code. Echo means to print out, and we'll use this get post type. Save it. Let's go refresh this page again and see it printed out the post type. Okay, so we kind of did a reality check. We are in the right place to modify this content here. So that's good. I can take out this bit now so we don't forget and leave some debug code in. All right, now what I want to do is I want to have a 2-column layout. To do that, I'm going to use a simple CSS grid layout. So the grid layout, you have a parent container, which will be your grid container, and then you have divs for your columns. So you notice here for the article element, it's printing out some class names. I'm just going to add the class name here, my initials first. Okay, so it's going to make it easy for me to see which things I've added. Here we have a div called content wrap. So I think what I want to do now is I'll use this div and I'll add a class here, and then I'll add a div above that, and I'll give this a class. All right, and so you notice that I'm giving classes, I'm doing classes because we're going to control the layout with CSS. So I need to be able to target the elements. Here we have this show featured image below, which is what we've set. So I'm going to move this bit up here. We'll put it inside of a PHP call. Now we'll paste that in. Because we haven't added any CSS, I think if we go to the front end, nothing's going to change. Okay, well, it did change a little bit. Our image is on top because it's in the first div, but things haven't changed much. Now let's go to the customizer and add some CSS to create our grid. Ooh, magic. Okay, so the first part, the top place where we said book single, that's the container. It says display grid. That's the container here. Okay, so that's the grid. Then this is column 1 and this is column 2. Here we say if media query the minimum width of the screen. So if it's 400 pixels or bigger, then we want 2 columns. The first one is 20% and the second one is 80%. For tablet and desktop, we're going to look like this, but for mobile, we'll stack it like that. And then here, we're just centering the featured image here in the column, right? So let's publish that. And we're making good progress, but the whole point of this is to add our custom fields. So let's go back now and add in our custom fields. I want the fields to come in right under the featured image. So let's add some code for that. And what I'll do is I'll put in here. I mean, you can see I figured this out before. Otherwise, the video would be, half hour longer of me typing this stuff in and seeing if it worked. But anyway, so I've created 2 variables. One's called author image. And this get field is an advanced custom field function to get the value of the author's photo. That's one of the custom fields. An author site gets the other custom field. Then I added another div in the same column with the featured image. And so we're getting author image, and ACF returns that as an array. So I'm getting the URL out of that. The image, I gave it a class in case I need to style it, and I set its width, and then I added a link, an href, put in the variable of the URL to the author's website. I know that Cadence styles anchor tags when you give a class a button to make it look like a button. And then I added another class in case I need to style it, okay, and wrote visit author's website. So let's save that and go see if that made any change. Great. Whoops, we've got some extra code here. And the images aren't centered or aligned well. And this isn't centered in the button. So let's go back to our place here. Yeah, we got a little bit of extra code there. So we'll take that out and save it. And now let's go back to the customizer. And we'll add some CSS here for centering this stuff. I use those classes. I targeted the author photo and centered that, and then the button and text align center. I'm going to publish that and go out, and we removed the extra code here. So now this looks pretty good. I suppose we don't have any space on the side there. So I suppose here we can add maybe some padding left. Okay, and that gives us a little padding there. Okay, before we finish up totally, we kind of hacked the Cadence theme, and there's some things we can do to make that more whole. And one of those is let's put our CSS code into the child theme, okay? So that's the purpose of the child theme, to package all this stuff up. So I'm going to copy this and remove it from the customizer. Okay, so we lost our customizer changes. Okay, so we go back to our child theme, and you notice that it has a style sheet in it. So I'm going to open that, and then I'm going to paste in our CSS from the customizer and save it. Let's go look, and nothing changed. All right, let's check the functions PHP. Here's something commented out, and it says remove the slashes from the beginning if you want the child theme style sheet to load. So let's do that and save. Let's refresh. Voila, it's working. Okay, now let's go back here. You notice that the child theme has a description. Okay, and so I'm going to add to that with a book custom post type single template. Okay, and one more thing we can do is you notice there's a screenshot that shows in WordPress in the theme directory. Let's modify that and add in a little note here. So let's save that. Okay, now let's go back and take a look at the themes. Here's our note that we added, and here is the extra information in the description. So if somebody comes along later, I mean, if this is just our site, it doesn't matter. But if you're handing it off to a client, this tells somebody if someone else comes along and wants to change the theme, you're giving them a clue that this has support for the book custom post type. And I suppose the last thing we could do is we could zip this up and then copy this off. If you use GitHub, you could put it on GitHub, or maybe you just have a folder or some other place where you keep your backups. But that way in the future, if you need to, you have a copy of it. Maybe it gets accidentally deleted, or you want to do something like this again with Cadence and you want to remember what you did, then you have another copy of that. Okay, so we've accomplished our task. We made a child theme and we modified it to support the custom post type. Now let's have a little discussion and some conclusions. As you can see, creating the single template by modifying the PHP and adding CSS is a lot more effort than using a theme builder plugin. You need to know some HTML, CSS, and PHP. Yep, now we know why the template functionality of page builders is so popular. It's faster and easier. Some people are happy to jump in and modify a child theme, and after you do it a few times, you know the general routine. However, there's no standardized way of including theme files or theme code beyond some basics required by WordPress. Before creating this video, I checked out several themes, and Cadence was the easiest I saw to modify. In other words, you're going to need to do some exploration to choose the theme you understand and find where to modify a theme, as they are each different. We could have just copied the single PHP file in the root of the Cadence theme directory to a single book PHP file, delete everything out, and then added our code there. If we took that route, we would have had then to take responsibility for the code, styles, and output, the header, footer, rendering the sidebar, everything. By making our changes as small as possible, we leverage the theme's code and styles so that it continued to do the heavy lifting. One takeaway I hope you remember is about child themes. You saw how we only needed to modify and copy over, preserving the folder structure, the files we wanted to modify or add. That's a pretty cool feature of child themes, and it means that the theme author can update the parent theme to add new features, and there's little likelihood that our additions would break. Still, it's a good idea to be mindful that your child theme depends on the parent, and also, depending on the changes you made, you may want to keep an eye on new versions of the parent theme in case they impact your child theme. Now that you've watched this video, I don't expect you to drop your page builder and do it by hand. In several of the earlier videos in this series, I mentioned the old-fashioned way of creating PHP templates by hand, and I felt it was a good idea to provide a feel for what that was like. So that wraps up my walkthrough and discussion. There's a text version of this video available on the WebTNG website, along with other walkthroughs, reviews, and resources. I hope you found this video interesting. Thank you for watching.